Hello and welcome to the Hemet Film Festival podcast. I'm one of the co-founders and the host of the podcast, Gabriel Diaz, and today I'm joined by Jordan Bryant, a filmmaker who had a video in our first film festival. Jordan, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Gabriel. Thanks for having me.
So there's a ton we can talk about. I think we should at least start with damned if you do, damned if you don't, and it being this pickleball story. Can we dive into that part first?
Absolutely. So like where it started from, what was the idea? Why did we make that one
Yeah, I
specifically?
mean, is this a thing where it's just as simple as you're playing or enjoying it and you're like, I want to do something more with this? Like what started to be the genesis for you?
Yeah. Currently as one of my like side, income, I write skits for professional pickleballers. And I wanted to, expand my portfolio to this particular girl who used to be number one in the world. And I wanted to create a couple concepts, and she was good friends with a friend of mine who's one of my partners in our kind of pickleball production company, if you will.
Okay.
And because their courts where we shoot this location at is like pickleball heaven. It's got like three courts on their property. It looks like a park, but it's not a park. So it's like we call it the Hollywood set of pickleball. And so I was like, all right, this girl. She used to be the number one in the world. Let's pitch her an idea. So we started talking about ideas, and they told me that back in the day, a situation happened where they went to a public park with her, and because she was so well known at the time that everyone wants to, like moths to a flame, everyone wants to play a game against her and try to beat her so they can brag about it to their friends at home saying we beat a pro. So that's what happened when she went to the park with my friend. They got swarmed, and when they were playing, the other opponents were hitting it to my friend who wasn't as good, and they ended up beating them. And then they were bragging that they beat her. So I said, "That's a story."
That's like depending on where you put yourself, like in the shoes of the characters of the story, it's either a nightmare or a dream, right?
Go, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, what if? So I that was like the crux of the story, and then of course everything is fabricated, but we wanted to keep that theme going. It's like I played the character like wanted to beat her, so that's kind of like I wrote the story around me being like the moth and her being the flame.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I guess there's something I hadn't thought to ask before prior, but was this, you said you had already been doing some skits. Was this one of the first like sort of short film level ones, or had you done a few prior to this?
Yeah, so we did five prior to this
Five. Okay.
one. Yeah, we did it for another gentleman. His name is Morgan Evans with the company Selkirk, which is the most well-known pickleball paddle manufacturer company in the US. And Morgan was one of the top five players in the world. So we had a contract to do skits for him, and we finished five, and they were super professional. And the actress in Damned If You Do, Damned If You Don't, she was reaching out because she like really wanted us to work with her and do something like that we did for him.
That's awesome. You got a little bit
Was,
of pull going.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of what we wanted. And she was with Franklin. Franklin is another pickleball manufacturer company, but it's been around for a lot longer though than Selkirk. They're into the ping pong scene. What
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're a big ping pong company.
So something that strikes me as interesting is yours video is probably the only one that was kind of, I guess you would say like sports as like the main topic, or not the topic, but like a background of it. What was the challenge of like filming that? Obviously, you've been doing it for a while, but it seems like you have to take a whole different filming approach to make sure that you're shooting things in a dynamic way instead of just two people standing on a court and no one's really interested in, side or flipping the line and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like the geometry of the scene, right? Because if she hits the ball and it exits the scene high, then if we frame it up and the person returning the ball, it has to be relatively going the same height and the same speed. Otherwise, it's not going to work and you're not gonna have a continuity shot. So there's definitely a whole nother
Oh
layer
man.
that you have to like, dive in, especially when she hits the small kid, the more aggressive scenes, the slapstick scenes. Those are, extremely challenging. Matter of fact, we had a very close call when I told her to take a big like whack at the kid, but I thought I said, act like you're doing it so we can cut. She goes full blown like, Thanos on this little kid, and bro, she barely missed his freaking face. And I don't have any insurance. Dude, this kid, my heart stopped that for a second. I said, "Oh my God, those are the close calls, dude, that that has been teaching me learning lessons because you're dealing with people that have the number one in the world. They can place the ball anywhere at a speed that's so injured. It could poke out your
Yeah.
he could have been blind for life, that was kind of the haunting. Not the kid getting hit and falling on his freaking butt like that. He was doing really good on those scenes, but it's when like she had to act like she was whacking at him. I was like, those are the scary scenes that
Comedy and
yeah
tragedy are often quite close, right?
yeah exactly. Sorry,
Almost had your own Billy Madison thing, right? Just wail at all the kids with the dodgeball, just wail on them with the
yeah
tennis.
yeah. Or Dodgeball the movie, man, where they're nailing the kids. It's so funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why it is when you injure a kid, it's just so funny. But
Yeah, if it's the right level, it plays very humorously on cinema for some reason.
yeah, yeah,
So you're working on that. What what for you was going back quite a ways? Did you always know that you wanted to kind of find a way to connect these passions? Did you always like filmmaking? Did you always like pickleball, or was there an
yeah,
evolution for both of them that started out for you? And can you kind of tell us where?
yeah. No, I love that question because in the beginning, like if really have to go back to the beginning of my life. My mom and dad were actors and actresses. They did
Oh, okay.
like Folgers in your cup. They would like, smell the coffee beans. Or my mom would like be in a Mercedes-Benz commercial and the kids would be in the car touching the features on the car. And then I would go to elementary school and people were like, "Oh my God, we saw you on TV." I said, "That's awesome." And I really didn't know what was going on, but my mom was always trying to get us in the world. But then my dad, like, they just didn't make it big as actors and actresses. And my dad was a real estate developer. We moved to Temecula. And so we picked up everything. We lived in Oregon when we were doing those when we were kids. So
Okay.
when my dad moved to California, my grandma invested a little bit of money for my brother's little at-home camera, and I took over it and I started doing some like at-home videos that I was super addicted to directing. And I knew exactly when we were making some backyard videos that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I was
How old were you around this point?
at this point, I'm like in sixth grade,
Oh,
man.
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we're shooting on these like old school tapes where you have to put a DVD in it. Like that's how I did it, back in the day
Oh, yeah,
before.
yeah.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, and it was skip and you would put it in the it was crazy. And then I upgraded, I got a DV camera, a DV, you know, and I always wanted to push limits. How do I go 24 frames per second? Because if you go 24 frames, your stuff is gonna look like a movie. And then so I always knew I wanted to make a movie one day, but I never wanted to go to Hollywood. I said, I just don't want to wait tables. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do these. At the time, YouTube was starting to become a thing. I would
Yeah, yeah.
look at these guys and they would just make their skits on YouTube and they would go viral. I'm like, okay, we don't got to go to Hollywood anymore. We could actually make our skits ourselves and make a name for ourselves here at anywhere and make Hollywood our own place. So I always looked up to those guys, like Balloon Shop. I don't know if you ever heard of those guys. Balloon Shop was one of my favorite skits. So anyway, over the years, I just kept at it, dude, making short film to short film. And I tried so many things, and I even started like to, rent out movie theaters, premiere my own stuff, and that's kind of how I got my name out there. Every year, I would like have my own film festival, and it got bigger and bigger. So I had like 8 film festivals here. I would take, I would host my work and other people's work, and so finally though, like fast forward to like a year, probably a year and a half ago, actually 2020 is when COVID hit and then no one could go to the gym, and that was when pickleball was introduced to me. And and then I didn't want to do, I thought it was something old people did. So so I went there, and when I got my ass kicked by an old person, I felt worse than losing money at a casino. And I said, all right, I think there's some comedy here, because I come from a tennis background. I played college tennis, and to have like, me get smoked by these old people just drove me and my younger brother absolutely nuts. Like it was like a walk of shame. So I was like, this is hilarious. Like I feel like this is the next big thing. And if, when you're a filmmaker, you're an artist, but you're also a business entrepreneur.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
yeah. So it's like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've been doing all these random comedy skits, but what if I you know, just focus on dancing around pickleball being like that's the theme of all my skits, and we just hammer and be known for that. And what if I can make a movie, do all these short skits, grow a following, and then help get them to crowdfund the movie because we've been putting in the time and effort on these high quality shorter skits.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, dude. So about a year and a half ago, I was working at a small filmmaking business that I had for a while was failing, so I had to get an actual corporate marketing video job. And I moved to Orange County, and I really hated it. And but the Selkirk company that I told you about, the Morgan Evans thing, I reached out to them and I said, hey, I noticed that you guys don't do any pickleball comedy skits. I'm a YouTuber and I only do pickleball comedy now. How about you send me some of your high quality paddles? These paddles cost $250.
Yeah.
Give me them, and I'll product place them in my skits, and then maybe we could work out a deal where we do this ongoing. So they responded and they said, absolutely. So they sent me a box of 4 paddles, and I was like, oh my God, it worked. Like this company, this is my audition, right? This is
Yeah. Yeah.
like, so I was living in Orange County. I drove to Temecula, and we like made this crazy skit, dude. Like I put my heart and soul into it, sent it back to the company, and they're freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, this is crazy. This is so good." And then phase two was like, "Okay, let's put a deal together." And I gave them a 10 skit contract deal, and at like a super super low Costco sample price because I really just wanted to over deliver and get in the door with them.
Yeah.
They said yes, and they said, but here's the caveat: we want you to focus on this one particular pickleball pro. Can you write the next 10 skits around Morgan Evans, this like our one of our main guys? And I agreed, and we've done 7 so far, and now I am making my whole point though, back to like why pickleball. I always wanted to make a movie, so I knew if I focused on this niche and got really good at it, then I can make a actual movie. And that's been the only, like, from 18 years of being a filmmaker, it's been like the only like number one reason why I want to get into filmmaking is to make a movie one day with a budget, like a good budget,
Yeah.
right? So we finished writing the script, the movie script, and now I'm almost done with these little skits right now. And now they're so impressed with my little skits. I'm now like gonna be asking them, hey, now we're done with the 10 skits. How about a big one?
Yeah.
And then
The proof is in the pudding. Here you go.
the
Let's
proof's in the pudding. Absolutely. So that's kind of my evil genius plan that's now public.
No, that's great. That's something the one of the co-founders, Daniel Maggio, and I have talked about is the idea that as we look to what the film festival can do for more people and more filmmakers, is the idea that like there's oftentimes this idea that commerce and art are separate from each other, and they don't have to be. And it's finding that thing of like, teaching someone a skill set that you could also still use for your job, but it helps you then pursue the thing artistically that gives value to you. And so it sounds like
Yes.
with your niche that you've cut out, you found a way to really tie those together. You're
Yes.
doing something of these shorts, and yes, it's a commerce-based thing, but it's something you enjoy and want to keep doing. And it then helps facilitate doing the like, all right, now here's the big project I want to roll out.
Yes. Yes. And it just like, pickleball is I love pickleball. It's a great sport. It gets people active. So I do love the sport. But selfishly, I just want to make a movie, and I just look at pickleball as a business opportunity. Okay, this
Yeah.
is like this is a stock that's blowing up. If I can get behind it, let's figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's practical business sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 101.
Yeah. That's something that I think is really fascinating for anyone listening is just this doesn't only have to be a passion and no income. Like you could find a
Yeah.
good balance in these things. And so I hope the listeners can kind of take that part out of this conversation.
Yeah. On that note, the guy who did the vlogging, his name's Casey. Forget his last name, but he's one of the biggest vloggers on YouTube. Forget his name. He's a guy in New York City. He's got that look. He's always wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. His recent podcast he just did was insane. Like basically, after he got his money and he was really successful, he did a vlog a day for 800 days in a row. I mean, it was insane.
Is it
So now
Neistat?
Yes,
Neistat.
yes, yes. So he's like, I'm done now. I got my money. I'm living good for the next 3 years. I don't really have to do anything. Now, what I really want to do is just post something and not look at the views just because I just want to make it. And honestly, dude, of course, I would love to do that one day. I would love to selfishly make something where I don't really have to care at all about the money. But the reality is, I gotta make some money. So in the beginning, I'm really thinking like a businessman. But dude, if I didn't need to work, I would absolutely make whatever the hell I wanted, and I don't care if there's a market for it.
So you mentioned that you were starting to enjoy the filmmaking even in like in sixth grade, and you were like, this is something that really matters to me. And then it wasn't until 2020 that you start kind of getting the pickleball connection point. What was the interim time looking like for you? Were you still making occasional short films with friends? Was it just a gestating idea? Were you connecting with people that were involved in film at all? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So you talking like prior leading up to 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always have been the guy to make short films, short comedy skits. And then, like I said, every year I would rent out our local movie
Yeah.
theaters and I would connect with other filmmakers. They would submit their films to me, and then every year we would premiere it. And it was so much fun, dude. Like I was addicted to that. I saw somebody do that with their skateboarding movie, and that's what really inspired me. He's like, well,
Okay.
he's doing it for a skateboarding movie. I would love to do it for my short films. And then once I started doing it, I was like, okay, well, I want to have another filmmaker experience what I'm experiencing. So let's render a timeline, a 2 hour timeline with all their short films. So then I got 8 other filmmakers with my film. So then I started networking with filmmakers, and it was really fun. So now it went from like just me to now other filmmakers, and it's like a 2 hour render premiere. So it's kind of like not a film festival, more like a film premiere event
Yeah.
of their short films. And I always have the red carpets, the limos, the after parties, the pre parties. I made it like one big thing. So
Went for the whole big event.
yeah, man. And when you post something online, it's great, but when you see it in a live format, it's just so much freaking better, dude.
There's something about the human connection of other people seeing it and
Yeah,
vibing it. Like just
yeah.
however you want to phrase it, there's a certain energy that exists from it.
It really is, man. Like it feels better than getting like 10,000 views online. When you see it, it's like 300 people in the theater. It's just like crazy cool feeling.
Well, I guess that begs the question of what was it like to have Damned If You Do, Damned If You Don't show up on the Hemet Film
Yeah.
Festival? Like what was that experience like for you? Because you were one of our first people there, if I recall. Like we had two other filmmakers show up like day of, and then you roll up pretty quick. And then we also had the opening night where you were there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember like how I loved it when I first walked in, and it was like the night before you're kind of like cocktail party with other filmmakers, get to meet them,
Mhm.
and you walk into where your movie's going to be played, and they have a replay of all the films just like on muted, and you see your film there. It was so cool. I love that because when you're talking to the filmmakers, you're like looking at the replay that loops every like 2 minutes, and you see like a 15-second of your film, and you're talking to people, you're like, that's my film, it's gonna happen. And it's the anticipation just starts building up. And that was one of the funnest things of the event is this meeting people, you tell them there's the movie trailer for tomorrow, it's gonna happen. So like that was one of the funnest things to do. And then I brought a date, and I showed her, oh, that's my film, and she's like, thinking I'm the man. That was kind of cool too.
You're like, all right, this worked out exactly as I hoped it would. Excellent. I think something that stands out to me too, and if you don't mind me bringing it up, the during the festival you had an injury to your arm. The reason I bring that
Actually,
up is the day of the festival. You're walking in, and we're talking to some other filmmakers who are there, and without saying a word, they were just like, "Hey man, what's up? What happened to your hand?" But it was done in such a like jovial manner that it genuinely took Daniel and myself by surprise, where we're like, do you guys already know each other?" And they're like, "No, we've never met before." I just felt like asking him. Like they already had this weird kind of just vibe of like everyone's just being friendly at each other.
yeah, yeah, man. It's. I always joke that I wish I still had the cast on because it was my biggest networking tool.
It's an icebreaker.
Yeah, for sure. It totally is, man. And what a branding tool, right? You can't. That's the guy with the broken hand. It's like you can't,
He
you
really
can't
loves
miss
his
him.
pickleball.
And that's the irony because like I broke it for ping pong, and everyone's laughing hard. Like, how do you break it for ping pong? Is that even possible? And yeah, totally broke it during playing ping pong.
Yeah.
And
Which wouldn't have happened if you'd been using Franklin products.
yeah, yeah, that's right. That's why I went with Selkirk. I should have. Yeah, man. No, that was cool. Everyone was really cool. The networking component, meeting all the filmmakers, and then being like you said, just so like, oh, I feel like I know this. I feel like I know these are my people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, everyone just wants to kind of interact with other creatives, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah,
like you want to get that experience. So
yeah,
yours plays, and what I don't you didn't start out the Southern California filmmakers, so there were a couple plays before you.
yeah,
How did you feel slotted in there? Like what was it like? Oh man, okay, like this is the my cohort.
yeah. So like, in other words, like, how did I feel like
Yeah, you're
with
you're
my other
you're there, you're
SoCal
watching it, you've
people?
got your date, it's
Yeah, yeah,
happening. Like what's that vibe for you?
yeah, for sure. Like for sure, I obviously like dopamine like 100x, right? You're just like, oh my God, like all of a sudden, you appreciate all the other films, and there's something. I was actually astounded that it was just insane films. I was laughing hard on a couple. So sometimes I was like, oh man, like how is mine gonna stand up to all this greatness, dude? Because there are some insane great films there, man. So then when mine comes on, you know, I go from like, oh my God, like a little nervous, like I hope they like this. And then, I just don't see a lot of people didn't play pickleball, so that's another thing. I was like, I hope, it's still funny to a non-pickleball audience. That was really what I was interested in is, are these people gonna laugh still? And the truth is, there was some scenes that surprised me and that they didn't laugh at that, I was like, okay. But then they really laughed at like a couple others that surprised me too. And they were loving the kid. At the end, all the questions was, where did you get that kid? Where did you get that kid? Like they love that kid actor. And that was really cool for me to see that like I did a good casting job because I scouted that kid. I was like, this guy, like there's something about this kid because he was an actor, an extra on my other Selkirk
Okay.
skit, and he was in the wedding audience. And as my PAs and my boom operators, my camera operators were like taking down stuff, he made a comment that made the entire cast and crew laugh. And I said, "Oh my God, this kid, he's funny." And then and subconsciously, when this project came on, I was like, there's only one kid I could think of casting, and it's him. And
Already
then of
recognized
course,
talent.
yeah, and then of course everyone was like, dude, that kid is hilarious. And so I loved that was like a really cool moment is like, the kid finally got his claim to fame, which he didn't come, but I'm gonna premiere it again. I'm gonna premiere it again. He's got to see himself on the big screen. There's nothing like, seeing yourself on the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that thing too. Just like here's an actor I think who really can take a tennis ball. I think, or that pickleball. I think they could really
Yeah,
take a
yeah.
pickleball hard.
You can take a hit. Exactly, dude. Exactly.
It is cool though that like because I was there watching everything too, and it's always nice when you can see an audience appreciate something and see the short film or the film stand on its own legs regardless of whatever the audience's pre-understanding is about it. You
Yeah.
know, like you said, like they maybe didn't trigger on the things you were expecting, but they were still having a good time and landing on things you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, you know, like I don't know everything, but I know they're liking it, so that's good enough.
Yeah. I know, man. One of my favorite shows on Netflix is the movies that made us, and it's like going over the
Yeah.
stuff like how, and then these filmmakers they make these films and they test it in these test audience, and they're praying that it's gonna land as well as they crafted it, man. It's just like, yeah,
So yeah, I do want to ask you about kind of the future you're looking at, but I also don't want you to like oversell the thing you still got to kind of pitch out there. But
yeah,
do you want to talk a little bit about what you're kind of hoping the next big project might look like, or even
yeah,
maybe further down the line what you'd like to work on?
yeah. So, like I said, I always wanted to make a movie, so um, basically, we're getting you know who Mr. Beast is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we are working with his mentor, Daryl Eves, who
Okay.
is the creator of, I don't know if you heard of the show called The Chosen. It's a Christian show about Jesus. It's the biggest show about him. And he's also the founder of VidCon, which Mr. Beast is partnered with him. This is the largest YouTube convention. Last year was in Texas. Have you heard of these things by chance?
Yes, I'm aware of it. And just for our listeners, you likely know Mr. Beast already, but if for some reason you don't, he is, I believe now the most popular YouTuber that
Yes, he's
exists.
the number one at the
I think
moment.
he took over
200,
PewDiePie not
yeah,
terribly long ago.
200 million
Um,
subscribers to be exact.
yeah, and in fairness, it's not undeserved.
Yeah.
He does some pretty amazing content. A lot of it is with like featuring money and dream making for people. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure people have that frame of reference.
Yeah. So I was getting coached by another coach called Think Media, Sean Cannell, which is still a great coach. But I saw Daryl at Funnel Hacking Live, which is basically a software company that teaches you how to do email list marketing, which is something that's fantastic for filmmakers. But when I saw Daryl's presentation about YouTube and how it worked, I was hooked. I hit Daryl up. I said, Daryl, I want to make a pickleball movie. I paid like $1,000 for 1 hour for his time, and he scrutinized our videos before the meeting. And when I told him our game plan, he's like, here's what you got to do. You have to write the script, write your pickleball movie, and then what you're going to do is you're going to make YouTube skits based on your main script. Okay. So right now I'm doing all these random skits. He's like, but you need to make a brand new channel and make it only about the characters from your movie script. So
Mm,
step one, write your movie. Step two, make a new channel. Step three, make skits with characters based on the main script. And then the call to action is you invite them to crowdfund the movie. And that's how he did it. So I was like, oh my gosh, that is awesome. So then he upgraded me to his like big like group coaching plan that I'm on right now. And we've been really heavily tackling this model. So he pushed me to make the film, to write the film. I was gonna write the film after I get 2 million subscribers. It was like in 5 years, like after really hammering these shorts, I wanted to get 2 million subscribers and then ask the subscribers to kickstart. He's like, no, dude. It's like, don't do that. Just write the movie right now and then write skits based off the script and invite them like right out of the gate. Just
mm.
tell them like you're going for a movie. So that's what we've been doing right now, and the script's done, and it's a slapstick comedy, dodgeball, Happy Gilmore vibes. And to be honest, like I've never written a 90-minute or in this case it was 146 pages. I just chopped it down to 97 pages. Dude, writing a scripts are no joke, but I always thought it was like, this huge mountain I want to climb, and I finally like got over it. I'm like, oh my God, like it was so awesome to be done. I read a book called How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days. One of my favorite books. It's a great book if anyone wants to learn how to write a screenplay. And I used that formula, and it was just when I finished writing the first draft, dude, I felt so happy. Like, oh my God, because I wrote in so many skits, small skits. And when you write a couple pages or even 10 pages, damned if you do, damned if you don't, it was like 10 pages. I was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna get made because I made so many skits in my days.
Yeah.
So after you write this 97 page, you're like, this is one long skit. I know I can make it because I've done highly professional production, smaller versions of this. This is just one big one. and I just need some money.
That's really so something that sticks out kind of what you mentioned there is I've heard other like creators like YouTubers and stuff talk before about like people who make like songs versions and things like that of if they have a skit they might have like a joke or an idea that they're like I think this has enough legs for 25 minutes or you know
Hmm.
or 5 minutes or 3 minutes and that's where I think it can land. And so I think something that is interesting is when you're looking at like how do I write something that's 90 minutes long that doesn't feel like a single joke that's going to run on, you know, that doesn't
Hmm.
feel like an SNL skit that should have ended 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
yeah,
it's a whole different beast for people to figure that out.
yeah, yeah. You know, I knew like, for sure. Like when I was like, okay, what is the movie about? What is the movie gonna be about? And how do you make it funny? How do you make it funny? Um, like I knew that Dodgeball and Happy Gilmore were like my favorite stuff, so I knew it had to be slapstick. And so I'll give you a little teaser of the storyline. The movie's called Nasty Nelson. It's kind of a funny line, but in pickleball, there's this shot that's very controversial, and it's called the Nasty Nelson. And basically, when you're serving in pickleball, instead of serving to the returner server, you can actually, if you hit the net person who's up at the net, and it's your point. And it's a very nasty way of playing. It's like dodgeball.
Yeah.
But this guy named Tim Nelson, he looked at that rule and he started abusing that rule. And
Oh, just
someone named,
targeting
yeah,
the
targeting
partner.
people in 2013. And this guy named Scott, I forget his last name, named it, dude, that's nasty. What Tim's doing, that's nasty. And then Tim's last name was
Nasty Nelson.
Nelson.
Yeah.
So it caught fire, and now it's like the most famous shot in pickleball right now that like Selkirk teaches for fun, Franklin teaches for fun. It's called the Nasty Nelson. Now people on the tour are doing it to other tour players to get that extra point. I mean, I'm like, dude, so I knew there was a story there. It's the origin story of the Nasty Nelson.
Jeez. I mean, because arguably, I think that still technically would count in tennis rules as well, but because of the
Yeah.
way the net is set up, you normally wouldn't be able to apply enough spin to hit the other person while it still seemed like it was potentially going to be in. Like you wouldn't necessarily be able to aim for that shot as easily.
Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. In tennis, yeah, for sure. But in tennis, that's like I knew that shot already existed, meaning I could serve it at the net guy in doubles, and it's my point. I already knew that. Someone told me that, but you never would really do it. It would hurt the person too much. Like
Yeah.
you just like serve it. But for fun during doubles in high school, I would totally do that
Yeah,
with
yeah.
my boys. I would try to hit them. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it's my point.
It's like the
So
tennis equivalent of throwing some chin music for a baseball. It's like maybe back up a bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, so to have somebody in pickleball who got famous for doing it and now it's the Nasty Nelson, I'm like, as a tennis player, I'm like, bro, I'm so glad someone gave it a name. And wiffle balls don't hurt that much compared to tennis. So you can still kind of be a dirty player. They call it dirty pickleball,
Yeah.
and it's
Well,
your
I mean,
point.
there's a whole thing, right, with pickleball. Some people who really hate people who just hang out in the kitchen for too long. Like there's a lot of those different umbrages that can be developed when you're playing pickleball.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of that's the whole concept and where we're at with the film.
Excellent. And so that's the one that you said you pared down to 90 pages right now?
Yeah, so right
97?
now 97 and I'm still finishing it. I'm on my like second draft right now. I'm having uh three other filmmakers reading it. One of them, he did a show, Jeremy Habig. Daniel knows him. He's did Car Masters. He was the
Okay.
sound up. Yeah, he's done so much shows in Hollywood and a lot of Netflix shows. So I got my three main people who like, scrutinize my stuff. And it's been a great experience, man, to tackle the big one.
I think too, just as kind of broadening it out to our audience to make sure that there's something they're gleaning from it. I really like what you're talking about with the idea that, using YouTube as kind of almost this horizontal strategy implementer of like, all right, like have these characters have skits that are going to help lead to this, help develop that
Yes.
call to action. And I think
Yes.
that's something that any listener, if you're an aspiring filmmaker or maybe just kind of just starting out, there are a ton of opportunities and things out there for you to help develop more skill. Like it can be something as simple as making a short for YouTube or even Instagram. Like any of these can give you an idea of how to connect something to your audience quickly.
Yes, yeah. And like you said, leading it to a platform, a Kickstarting platform, there's Indiegogo, there's Kickstarter, and I believe Kickstarter, if you don't fund it in the amount of time, then they get their money back. But Indiegogo, it's all good. Like you get to keep the money no matter what. So then you gotta like be kind of like strategic of, okay, like when do you launch, and
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that. So, um,
We
and
could have
so
a
I'm
podcast just on the Kickstarter,
nice.
like just everything that goes into like if you can't fund on Kickstarter within the first like 16 hours,
Yeah.
you're 80% of your business is going to get done that time frame. Like there's so many weird variables in that world.
I'll have to check that out, man. Because so I'm now learning like, okay, which one do we want to go for? So that's kind of my predicament. But if we can get Selkirk to come in as a sponsor for a large chunk of it,
Yeah.
then we only have to raise, so much more.
Oh, it's almost like having a letter of intent and a grant. If you have like Selkirk or someone like that supporting on board, everyone else is able to understand the legitimacy that's added to the Kickstarter. And then they
Absolutely.
can go,
Absolutely.
oh, okay, this isn't just a person who's going to abscond with my money.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. These guys are a big paddle company. And then, locking down legit actors and actresses.
Yep.
We already started doing that. There's one. This is kind of a funny side note, but I'm sure you'll get a kick out of this. Have you ever heard like the pop culture name Karen?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Someone
So
being a Karen.
someone being a Karen. All right. So in pickleball, guess what? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of Karens. So
I guess they have to play a sport, right?
yeah, yeah. So there's this girl that my one of my business partners of the pickleball company, Pickleflix, knows. She was the finalist in America's Got Talent for being a comedian, a trailer park trash comedian, and now she goes like to Hollywood and Vegas at the Jimmy Kimmel Club to do these trailer park trash skits. And I met with her a couple of days before New Year's, and she's gonna be the Karen. So we got our first legit, kind of a comedian actor on board as the Karen. I'm so excited for that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Gotta have a Karen if you're gonna make a pickleball skit.
Yeah, I feel like this episode of the podcast is fun because we haven't really dived or delved too much into like this sort of business aspect that people run into. So I've been
Yeah.
kind of enjoying like going on to that of, a lot of people are just pursuing one aspect or another and not aware of like, yeah, it can be a little bit of a mix. And like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
is Pickleflix now sort of your main employment opportunity? Is it still kind of developing up? Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, so right now, Pickleflix makes, Pickleflix original. It's gonna make its first Pickleflix original movie. And this
Okay,
movie is gonna be The Nasty Nelson, a Pickleflix original movie.
nice.
And yeah, so eventually, we're going to be becoming a streaming platform like similar to Netflix, but it's Pickleflix. That's kind of where like the end goal. And that way we can have other creators kind of like put their stuff under us. We host it, and we want to have like every year we want to have a Pickleflix premiere. Have like that 2 hour event of everyone else's like short pickleball stuff with ours, and still have that live kind of format with a subscription based model attached to it. That way we can have, because pickleball, as you know, is a kind of like a cult. It's like, it's not like your average sport. It's kind of taken over America if you haven't noticed. So there's so much content. So we want to be the next Netflix, where, we go to creators, because I'm already doing that. I already go to creators and say, hey, let me, put your content under my, umbrella and premiere it under a 2 hour event. So it's very similar. You just do that online. Let me take your content, we'll pay you a royalty every month and figure out the business side of the subscription-based model. And that way, I really want to have enough funds to help filmmakers continue to grow their pickleball comedy skits. Whereas on YouTube, they really don't have the opportunity. They kind of like, you get paid until the views kind of trickle out, so you can only get paid so much.
Yeah,
Whereas I really want to help them out, like grow, and us grow at the same time, so we can continuously do content versus one and done.
that is
I
fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
because royalties and things like that definitely, especially with something like that that potentially could get skewed by the algorithm
yeah,
of YouTube, like a pickleball. You could end up just not getting enough views that are generated from the algorithm just not throwing you on front page, which is never going to be good. And then, like you
Absolutely.
mentioned, it is also sometimes there are very obfuscated, but like you have to have a certain amount of watch time, or you have to have a certain amount of like length to certain videos, and some are preferred over others. So if you have your own Pickleflix where people are able to just like, here's a revenue, people watched a bunch of your stuff, you're still getting a correct funding back. Like that's
Yeah.
really I really like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just wanna keep making films for like just specifically, pickleball films with a budget and not have to worry about going out to get a budget. So if I could figure out some kind of subscription base where we have like everyone's loving our stuff, but collectively, not just me, we have a collective vast majority of other filmmakers who submit to us, and we all can all share the profits that we can continue to build amazing content for the public.
Yeah, kind of the co-op approach for
Yeah.
things. That's awesome.
Thank you, man.
Well, Jordan, I feel like we've covered a lot of really cool stuff. Is there anything you wanna land on? You want to make sure we punch in that we maybe haven't gone over yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I really just first off, the first I was telling Daniel like the first Hemet Film Festival, like I thought you guys have done this every year to have it be the
It's
first
kind of cool.
event. Yeah, I was like blown away by how like professional everything was and how great and flowed and so many people showed up. There's a lot of people that showed up, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
was
really
like,
blew my
heck
mind.
yeah, man, let's go. So I just, just and I have a couple friends from the Hemet area, and they came out. They're like, what, you guys really inspired them as people because they used to be creative artists in high school. So to see their city, going after, the creative, genre and really putting a dent in the community lights a fire in them to stand up and create again. And that's what I love to see. And I love what you guys are doing. And I love just, talking to you about this, man. And I rarely get to do it. And when I do, it makes my day.
Oh, it's a blast. I appreciate it, Jordan. Yeah, I think you're right. That's something that I wasn't expecting, but has absolutely been my favorite part is how many people were creatives that maybe felt a little stagnant or a little unheard. And suddenly doing a film festival like this, like there are people who are like, man, now I want to like check out next year and maybe try to have something ready to go for the like to put in
Yes.
next year. Like all of a
Yes.
sudden there's this energizing feeling from everyone, and I'm like, okay, this is rewarding. Like this is
Yes.
super cool.
Yeah, dude, could you imagine a virtual event, which is still great, don't get me wrong. Virtual event, but like, dude, there's nothing like you said, man, just coming together and everyone watching, like, and the creators are in the room. It's just so cool to see. Oh my God, he made that. It's
Surrounded
so
by
great.
other people, other filmmakers, other actors, other creatives
Yeah.
in 100-year-old theater.
Yeah, come on. Does it get better than that? And some good wine, some good $5 wine.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're gonna definitely have to blow out some of the beverage options for next year for everyone.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Gabriel. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening to the Hemp Film Festival podcast.